Okay, welcome everybody. Thanks for registering for our ECOG Turbo Talk. Today we're gonna kind of focus on transportation in the Interstate 380 corridor. So we'll have a talk from Sam Shea, who's a district planner with the Iowa Department of Transportation in the District 6 office, talking about road projects and the construction updates in the corridor. In the second half, we'll talk about the 380 Express bus service and some new changes started there. So to kick it off, we'll welcome Sam, and I think he's going to get his screen up to present as a screen share, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, let's see. Did I?
Yep, we see it.
Okay. For a minute, I thought I had myself muted, and then the controls for the Zoom meeting had disappeared because I'm sharing my screen. So I was getting nervous. Sorry.
Yeah, you're all good now.
So we're going to talk a little bit about the I380 improvements. By all means, speak up if you have a question when we go through here. Don't feel like you have to wait until the end. It's a pretty short update. It'll take me about 10 minutes or so, and there's like 7 slides. So um, So first, if you're somewhat unaware of how these projects are running, I've got a map here that I had to cut into 3 pieces. Um, so to display it there, so I've got the north section, the central section, and the south section. So each one of these represents a different project for the DOT. I think most everyone's aware that the north section and the south section are currently under construction. So the south section goes from somewhere north of Forever Green Road up to about Swan Lake Road before you get to the Iowa River Bridge. Segment 2 that we haven't started yet is, or the central section, starts up at Swan Lake Road and then goes over the Iowa River and then ends up with the Swisher-Shoeyville interchange at 120th. And then the north segment, which is also underway, includes Wright Brothers Boulevard and goes from, just north of that Swisher-Shoeyville exit all the way up to US Highway 30, but does not include Highway 30. So starting on the south end, we have pretty good news. We've fully funded this project from Forever Green Road. It's ahead of schedule. It was originally programmed for about $63 million. We have roughly $1 million left to spend, left in projects to be let this year. And most of those are erosion control, landscaping type projects that'll be let in fiscal year 27. We are ahead of schedule. The planned opening for this project for open to traffic was spring of 2027. We're now thinking maybe October. Of course, that's weather dependent. If you've been down that way, the northbound off-ramp to Penn is currently closed and is going to stay that way for the next 3 months while they finish up the pavement work on that. Forever Green Road through North Liberty is the detour route that you take for that. After we get everything open, though, you should probably still expect some occasional short-term lane closures, and maybe even some shoulder closures as we continue to do various work along the corridor. The next segment heading north is the Swan Lake Road to 120th Street or Swisher-Shoeyville exit. We're hoping for a 2030 construction, maybe 2031. Currently, in the new program that came out yesterday, we have $56 million programmed for this work. The total cost estimate right now is $133 million, so we've got a little bit more to come. But the program only goes out to 2031. So I think we'll be fine having that additional funding in 2032 and 33 if we need it to go all the way to 33. So what I'm showing here is just that interchange, 2 different directions at 120th, and I'll show you a little bit more about that on the next slide. We're hoping to have this open by 2033. Unfortunately, The existing pavement on 380 through this segment is not going to make it till 5 years. So we're at the district, we're trying to throw together a resurfacing project to get out this fall. So we're going to have to resurface those four existing lanes to put kind of a Band-Aid on it until we can get to the full reconstruction project coming up in 5 or 6 years. So here's the updated interchange at 120th. This is what we refer to as a dog bone roundabout. So the design is maybe not intuitive to folks, but it is a single roundabout. It looks like two. It operates as one. If you follow yourself around there, if you want to go south, you've got to come all the way through it and to the other side and go south. And the same thing going north. If you're coming from Swisher, you've got to go all the way across and then follow the roundabout around to go north. The advantage to this design is it allows us to move the actual interchange termination points in closer to the main line. And some of the reason we want to do that is that the standards have changed for safety on cross streets. We like to now stay as far away as we can, but certainly more than 600 feet whenever possible. When people exit the interstate system, they tend to move a little faster when they get on the local street system. They're not used to the slower speeds yet. We like to have a larger gap between the first driveway they encounter. And right now that's where this interchange operates under the previous standard. We've now found that to be safer to do it this way. You'll notice some changes, for example, in that gas station on the northeast quadrant that we're shifting that driveway over also. And that again is to get that access point as far away as we can reasonably from the interchange. The other advantage we get to this is, of course, it saves on right-of-way expenses because we're not buying as much property. And we get to keep this bridge. So this intersection doesn't have enough traffic to warrant like a 4-lane bridge. And the existing bridge is roughly 40 years old. It's currently in good condition. And our bridge engineers tell us that they can probably get another 30 to 40 years out of it. So we don't really want to run project costs up by replacing a bridge that doesn't really need to be replaced yet. And we get that advantage out of this interchange design. And our final segment on the north end is I380 from about 120th up to US 30, but not including US 30, and of course includes the Wright Brothers Boulevard interchange, the diverging diamond there. We're completing the remaining pavement. As many of you are aware, if you've driven out there, the traffic is currently head-to-head in what will be the northbound lanes when we're all done. This is also well ahead of schedule. Currently, of course, once again, weather dependent. We are hopeful that we can get this open to traffic by the end of the year before the snow flies. So late November. And again, this one was originally programmed at $102 million, and it's fully funded. All the projects have been funded in their year. I think all the lettings have happened as well. So we're currently planning to open the end of 2026, which is about a year ahead of when we were supposed to be open. So they're really killing it out there. But again, next year we'll have probably landscaping and erosion control type projects, maybe some paint striping projects. So there could still be a lane closure or a shoulder closure next year. So be on the lookout for those sorts of things to come up. Also, the final thing we have going on is this summer, we're kicking off a study of the Highway 30 and I380 interchange. As most folks are aware, if we're 6 lanes north of that interchange and 6 lanes south of that interchange, that creates some concerns with how that interchange is going to operate. So we're looking at a study, the ability financially for the DOT to fund a full reconstruction of an interchange at this location like we did at, say, 8380 is highly unlikely. So what we're trying to do now is identify solutions that will make it safer to operate through there, less merging and weaving and that sort of thing. So we're going to do a study on that. It'll probably take us a year to nail down some options going forward and then see what we can fund going ahead with that. And that's all I've got. So here's, of course, my obligatory contact information that you have to share on the last slide of every PowerPoint you ever do. So feel free to copy this down, or of course, you can get in touch with anybody at ECOG. They have my contact info as well.
Great. Thank you, Sam. I could maybe take a minute if there's any questions from the audience. Otherwise, we can keep going. Okay. Sam, if you stop sharing, I'll pull up my slides.
All right. And
Showing up there. Oh, there we go. Okay. Well, I'll kind of dive into the second half of our Turbo Talk today. I'm Brock Rennis, a transit planner with the East Central Iowa Council of Governments. Just want to kind of give a somewhat brief talk about the 380 Express bus service, what it is, how it's got to the point we're at, and then some recent changes, looking into the future on how we hope it continues to operate. Okay, so brief background on the project itself. It all started in 2018 and originally was a component of the original reconstruction on Interstate 380 and 80, the interchange. The DOT graciously decided to fund the project as a way to mitigate traffic for commuters that travel between Cedar Rapids and Iowa City along that corridor during the construction. So that interchange, if anybody remembers, was originally between a 5 and 7 year project. That ended up getting done a little sooner than that, but the bus service started along with that. And in that time has proved so popular that it's continued on beyond that project wrapping up. Again, a DOT funded project, 100% originally, with that original timeline being fiscal year 2023, then got extended to fiscal year 26. We're now at a stage where it's funded, committed to fiscal year 2029. There has been a few changes in the funding agreements with the DOT, but the bottom line is the service will continue until at least that time. And then we as ECOG are, always looking at ways to continue that on in the future, being that it has proven popular and see how we can continue that beyond that. So, stay tuned in future years. But I always like to mention too that the service itself is operated by Windstar Lines. They're a private company, headquartered out of Carroll, Iowa, but they do have an office kind of by the airport. So they're very responsive in operating the service. They provide the drivers, the buses, all the customer service issues that go along with the bus service, and they do a great job. I'll get into more specifics of the service here in a sec. But the service itself, as is, we recently rebranded it the Corridor Loop, and that's because there's a different route that I'll talk about in a minute. But anyway, this normal service that operates with 6 stops, 3 being in Cedar Rapids, then at the University of Iowa hospitals and clinics, downtown Iowa City, and then Coralville at the Iowa River Landing Intermodal Center. There are 19 round trips throughout the day, the first one beginning at 5:22 in the morning, and the last route pulling in at 8:32. So it's a pretty robust service that operates throughout the day. It accounts for 38 service hours, and that includes 4 buses that make this route back and forth. So the busiest times of the day, around that like 7 to 9 a.m. and then again between like 3 and 5, the buses will actually hit every stop at 30-minute headways. So it's pretty frequent. And then those off times, it stops at each stop on the hour, every hour. So it's a pretty good balance to meet those commuter demands, while also having a good coverage throughout the entire day. And then just giving you an idea, the most popular stop being Kirkwood and Iowa City to the university hospitals takes about 33 minutes, which is real comparable to driving in your own car. Now, if you were to take like the furthest northbound stop in downtown Cedar Rapids all the way, to downtown Iowa City, that would be, a little closer to 50 minutes with all the stops, but still not an unreasonable trip. So statistics about the service, we just like to show these to show the service is growing, year to year. The top graph just shows a monthly ridership over the years. I like showing this because, it shows in the summertime, the ridership does drop. We attribute that to the service, being involved with students both at the University of Iowa and Kirkwood. So in those months where school isn't in session, the ridership is down, but then picks back up in the fall when they kick back in. But overall, there's between 450 and 500 riders per day, which isn't going to magically make congestion on Interstate 380 disappear, but it does make a pretty big difference when you think about that many cars not traveling on the interstate. We know the majority of those travelers go south in the morning, so from Cedar Rapids to Iowa City, and then the converse in the afternoon going back north to Cedar Rapids. And again, about 7 a.m. and 4 p.m. are kind of the peak ridership times, those being associated with major shift start times at the hospitals and other university destinations. If you were out there, in those busiest times and you got on the bus, it would be almost full. So the bus will hold about 50 some people. And some of those morning and afternoon trips just about fill up the bus. So those are pretty critical times to get people where they need to go. We also know from some survey data that the majority of those trips are work-related, about 67%, and then another 12% being school or education-related trips. The remainder would just be considered leisure or maybe healthcare-related trips. But a lot of commuters, use the service, especially to the university hospitals, where I've been there. It's pretty congested, busy, and then the parking lots, for staff there are premium. So even the folks that work there usually have to park in a commuter lot and ride a CAM bus to town, or into the campus. So this is just almost an option to do that same service just with the start at Cedar Rapids. We also point out too that there is some regional use of the service. If you ever go in the parking lots at these park and ride parking lots, you would see license plates from other counties, not just Lynn and Johnson. So Benton and Jones County being a couple examples, but also it's not uncommon to see some Cedar County or counties further off than that. So starting last week, June 1st, we launched a new service we're calling the Campus Connect route. So this is a different route that instead of going all the way to downtown Iowa City, they're just going from downtown Cedar Rapids, stopping at the Kirkwood campus, then going to the new University Regional Health Center in North Liberty, and then the Kirkwood Regional Center at the University of Iowa, which is in the University of Oakdale campus. So it's a little more condensed, shorter service, only operating 4 stops, but otherwise has the same buses, same fare system, everything that you expect on that regular route. And we looked into doing this because we've heard a lot of feedback over the years that people in North Liberty and that north part of Coralville really need to commute. There's a lot of destinations that aren't served by any sort of bus service. So through a survey, we kind of presented these options and routes and heard very positive feedback that this would be well received. Being that's only been in operation for a little over a week, we don't really have numbers statistics quite yet, but we should have those pretty soon to have some initial feedback. So we did coordinate with the University of Iowa hospitals in Kirkwood on the stop times, to make sure they're in line with the people that would use the service as far as, what they need to get there and when they would ride a bus to get home. And overall, we're kind of looking at it as a pilot service to see how it goes. And if the need is there, potentially expand it. We do have somewhat of a limited budget, but that'll kind of serve as a good barometer to see, what kind of people we're serving and that need that's out there. So besides the new route that's started, we did bump up the fares. So originally it cost $3.50 to ride one way. That's now moved up to $4. And that's kind of to help provide more funding from the local level. Because in future years, the DOT money isn't always going to be there. So we're kind of looking at ways to make the service go long term. There are a couple of routes that weren't very well utilized that we got rid of. So the earliest one that left Cedar Rapids at 4:52 a.m. And then 2 stops in the late afternoon, or removed from the service. They average less than 5 riders per route, so it really wasn't all that efficient to run that. And with those budget savings, we're able to offer that new campus connector route that goes to North Liberty. Then also took a chance to or an opportunity to change some of the stop times in the afternoon, mostly in the Iowa City area, to kind of increase on-time performance. If you ever are traveling the interstate or, downtown Iowa City, especially in the afternoon, there's just a lot of traffic, a lot of congestion. So the buses have to travel through there, and it's no different for them kind of getting behind schedule or falling behind. So we hear feedback from people that, the buses are a little late. They get frustrated. So with these changes, I think it's already kind of making a difference to increase those stop times being better performed. And then one final note. So in this next current fiscal year, 2027, instead of the Iowa DOT providing 100% of the funding to cover the service, it's going to drop down to 80%, which we knew and was intentional all along. But that other local match, if you will, or the 20%, will come from East Central Iowa Council of Governments. And this will be in place through 2029, at which point, the funding picture could change again. And we'll study and look at the options of the services beyond them. But so right now, that's kind of the picture of the service. I think that wraps up the service itself. But ongoing, we're going to keep looking at that new route and the current service to see how well utilized it is, and if any changes are needed. We always aim to be as efficient and practical with the dollars that we get to provide the best service. So it's always something we're looking at. And then continue working with the DOT. They've been great partners, and the fact that they're providing funding for the service, speaks volumes to the idea that, they're not just add lanes to the highway and throwing money at expanding the road networks. They're also looking at these alternative modes of travel, which is great. But we're also kind of going to be starting more serious conversations with some local agencies, those being in Cedar Rapids and Iowa City, Coralville, perhaps, and University, on looking at that local match funding as that grows beyond fiscal year 2029, because the service really doesn't have a local government behind it per se, but those dollars will be critical so to fund it in the future years. And then marketing. We did do a kind of a brief marketing campaign when we made these new changes last week. So for the past month, we've ads out on Facebook and other social media sites that promote the new service changes and the service as a whole. But we like to do that every now and then just to remind people that the service is out there. It's a great option for commuters. So that kind of wraps up everything I have, but I know we probably got some time if there's any questions. And if not, I did not put the obligatory contact page on here, Sam, so shame on me. But if you know how to get hold of ECOG, you can certainly find someone to ask a question.
I think that was a little tongue-in-cheek comment from me, actually.
Yeah, I should have put it on. That's my bad.
Thank you, Brock and Sam, for your good information sharing. Sam, I was curious on 120th Street here in Swisher Cherryville. Will those signals be staying in place until the new roundabout is completed?
So we'll keep that. We don't have the traffic staging plans done yet, but we will make every effort to keep 120th open as long as we can. But there will most certainly be a time when we have to close that bridge that you won't be able to get from one side to the other. But we're working on limiting that amount of time, and we'll have detours. The detour's a little simpler on the Swisher side because you can just go up 965. The detour on the Shreveville side is a little more complicated. I mean, there's also a route there, but it's just a little bit more effort and it's a little further away from the highway.
Yeah, I think it's really good information. There's so many people that use Interstate 380 every day, and it's very good news that it's coming up so early.
Yeah, I think so too. Thank you.
Okay, well, if there are no more questions, thank you everybody for attending, and check the ECOG website and social media channels, because we do these turbo talks a couple times a month on a variety of topics. And love to have an audience. So thank you very much for your time.